All right, Ruto must go is still the top trending hashtag this morning, probably because it was the very first question that the president was asked in that media roundtable by senior journalists yesterday. Aliulizwa tu straight. Umesikia huko nje wanasema Ruto must go. Utasemaje? Surely.
What do you have to say about that?
Anyway, today is the 1st of July, 2024. Happy new month. Karibu sana TV47. This is a morning cafe. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And it is the first day of the week. This is about to get interesting. A marvelous Monday morning. In case this is your first time ever, right here, this is Morning Cafe. This is how we serve your tea. Kuanzia sahi all the way hadi 10 a.m. Kabisa. This is the kind of Monday panel that you'd be expecting.
Oh yes. Our big power panel this morning, Kipruto Arapkirwa, Samuel Pugisio and Philip Kisia. Dr. Mombingaru may not be able to join us today, but at least a gentleman will be here to discuss what the president was talking about yesterday, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Liulizo maswali mingi akambua, you know, everyone out there is saying, you are lying.
Oh, yeah.
Live on air.
But then the word of the day, soul searching. Are you soul searching this week? Yes.
Interesting conversations right here on Morning Cafe. Do stand by for that and a lot more later on.
Yes, coming up at the tail end of the show. So because we're in the cold season, so you probably have kuna shida ya nostrils moja, kuna shida kidogo. So we'll be getting into this conversation. We'll be getting into this something called cranial facial release. Dr. Hamisi Kote Ali, the director of chiropractic, founder, the Human Garage Group, will be joining us for all that, a whole practical kind of bit. But then before that, we discuss infertility in men. Yes, that one conversation that men are stepping back to even have. We'll be taking a look at some data to really understand why, even in Kenya, you know, they say 1 in every 5 couples kuna shida ya infertility.
Okay.
So yes, we'll be getting to understand that. But then to the headlines, Ruto at pains to explain kidnaps, deaths and graft.
Another very long headline. I'm not a fan of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words. I prefer 2, 3 words. So Ruto at pains to explain kidnaps, deaths and graft. That's a big headline on the Standard this morning.
On the Daily Nation, Gachagua opens up on his tiff with Ruto.
Another very long sentence on the headline, but yeah,
it's just the start of.
I think it's one of those days where everyone just feels verbose and everyone wants to say a lot of things. But at least Gachagua finds himself back on the front pages.
Oh yes, a short headline.
Yeah, so tekaji nyara waendelea. Now this is the kind of headline you want to see. 3-word headlines, powerful, punchy. Yes, that's a big headline on the front page of the Taifa Leo today. Another long sentence there. You read that one.
How Kenya paid 197 billion Kenya shillings interest on debut Eurobond.
Okay.
Shachoka kusoma.
Maswala ya biashara pale kwenye kurasa mbele Business Daily. Yes. Pope condemns Ruto. Now,
3 words.
Yes, 3 words. This is the most powerful headline if you ask me.
Yeah.
You just look at that and you want to read that story. Pope condemns Ruto. Tell me you don't want to find out what exactly the Pope said.
I definitely want to know.
That's the kind of headline we need.
Another, quite longer one. Wrote at NHIF, puzzle of 7 billion cash shillings payments.
Yes. A relevant headline, yes. But usually our people on Wayakiwe wanakuanga miss point.
Usianze kuchoma this early in the morning. Across the region to the East African, very short headline, no compromise. This has to do with the tiff between Somalia as well as Ethiopia. They say you'll never have a military base on our shores. Somalia President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud tells Ethiopia, which he accuses of bad faith, is also putting Shabab on notice as AU mission winds up. But then away from that, Nairobi finds itself on the front page or the very top strip. They say wave against more taxes sweeps East Africa. From Nairobi to Dar, East Africans oppose new tax plans.
Tumechokora watu in the region, so everyone wants to protest. Budget showdown. This is in Uganda, and these are the kind of headlines we want to see, yes? Short to the point. You'll read the story baadaye. Don't give me the whole story on the headline. And they talk about counterclaims by the executive and parliament ahead of tomorrow's emergency house sitting to reconsider the appropriations bill. They're also talking about matters budget, yes, which the president returned, and the spotlight how money is the real power and a fight by either side for its control is blurring otherwise clear legal mandates in budgeting. So debate around the budgeting process making headlines in Uganda this week, but still on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. And this time round, they're not even talking about the protests. It's rift between Ruto and Gachagua. Let me ask you,
Who is the deputy president of Uganda, though?
I have no clue. Who's the deputy president of Tanzania? They know the deputy president of Kenya. Even in Uganda, it's on the front page.
And they're discussing it.
Rift between Ruto and Gachagua deepens. That's the front page of the Daily Monitor in Kampala, Uganda. Staying in Uganda, on the New Vision.
The New Vision. New taxes start today, the new financial year. 2024-2025. But then another interesting conversation here. So Janet Museveni voted Africa's most decent first lady. So there's actually this particular award, and they were awarding 10 first ladies in Africa. And our very own First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto was number 6.
Okay. At least she made it to the top 10. Most decent first ladies.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
No, they were ranking, they're only 10. They were only ranking 10, so she got number 6.
It's still okay.
Yes.
She did well. She did well. So yes, matters taxes still making it to the front pages of the New Vision in Uganda. It's a big discussion there. No mention of Kenya on the front page of the New Vision, though. Let's cross over to Tanzania and see what they're talking about.
Mbinu za kujilinda na kansa ya uume. They talk about prostate cancer here. Kunusuru maisha ni uume kukatwa, kasi ya waathirika nchini kubwa. Wataalamu watoa tahadhari, ngono zembe na uchafu vyatajwa.
Kiswahili neno. On matters health, on the front page of the Mwananchi, they've moved from matters budget making. And you see, if the finance bill had been passed, or had it not been rejected, it would have kicked in. Those taxes would have kicked in officially today, starting today. So now nothing, the status quo remains. But even on the front page of the of Mwananchi in Tanzania, no mention of budget making process there on the front page. I think it's only in Uganda now that they're talking about the budgets.
Still in Tanzania, the front page of the Citizen, exposed degrees for sale scandal. They say, we expose, well, this paper exposes how degrees have been reduced to a commodity that can readily be bought through underhand dealings in a web of corruption involving students, lecturers, and ICT department heads at some universities.
All right.
Yeah.
It's not something new to us Kenyans in Tanzania. It makes it to the front page.
Yes.
Yes. So matters education making it to the front page of the dailies in Tanzania.
And finally, on the front page of the New Times, that is in Rwanda. So today, actually, by the way, to all our Rwandans, brothers and sisters, happy Independence Day. It is the Independence Day today. And the counting, they've started the whole countdown to the elections, which will be happening on the 15th of July. For the diaspora, voting will happen a day before. It is the 14th of July. So this is what they say. 9 million Rwandans registered to vote. In 2017, when they had the presidential election, it was about 6.8. So it is an increase. That is going to be interesting to see how the numbers will be changing.
Okay, so it is election month in Rwanda as well. So it's going to be interesting. We'll keep tabs on that throughout this month, even as we get closer to election day. A quick look at the traffic situation in Nairobi this morning.
Hey, the roads are...
You can actually see this section of the road. This is Haile Selassie Avenue, down from that roundabout to Gikomba. But this whole stretch, the Marikiti area, all the way up to Uhuru Highway, that's a very busy route today.
This is a Monday traffic.
Yeah, this is normal Monday traffic. Schools are supposed to be back after midterm, probably.
Yeah.
Jogoo Road too, back to normal. A bit of snarl up here at Makadara, Mbotela area, as well as the City Stadium roundabout. But that is normal. Nothing much to report about. It's markedly different from what we saw on Friday. Where is that? That's Kangundo Road. Parts of Kangundo Road looking a bit slow towards Outer Ring Road. Yes. Mudaiga, Pangani interchange, usual suspect, yes, already building up there. So do expect a bit of a snarl up once you get there, but nothing abnormal. Actually, it's quite friendly. Thika Road not looking bad, only up until when you get to Pangani, that's when you start experiencing problems. Kiambu Road is also looking good. So is Mombasa Road as well. On the southern part of Nairobi, Mombasa Road towards town is looking good. Langata Road as well, nothing much. This is Ngong Road too. The only place that probably you'll spend some time is at the Prestige, what do you call it? Is it a T-junction or a cross junction? Yes, there are lights around that area. That's the only place you'll experience some delays. On Wayaki Way is looking good all the way from Mountain View past Kangemi, ABC Place into town. Traffic so far at this time of day, which is about 13 minutes past 6, is looking good. So yes, that's the situation. The only problem is Haile Selassie Avenue this morning. I think that's the biggest problem we've seen on the roads. So if you're using Haile Selassie Avenue on either way in town, that problem is there, but it just shows that there's quite a lot of activity going into town this morning.
Right. Let's take a look at the weather traffic, rather the weather, and we do go with what the Kenya Meteorological Department tells us. So they had a forecast of last week, the 25th, until today. So we obviously again expect the Kenya Met Department to release a new forecast as of today all the way to the next week, how this is going to be looking like. But technically going to see some low nighttime temperatures, high daytime temperatures, and they say rainfall is expected in parts of the central highlands, the western Kenya, Lake Victoria Basin, as well as Rift Valley and coast. And generally, the rest of the country is going to remain dry. And just a perspective of that, in different parts of the country, in Meru, it is going to be looking like about 14 degrees Celsius as of now. That's moderate temperatures, but then it promises to get even hotter. In Mombasa, kure Pwani, 23 degrees Celsius. Can you imagine that right now?
As we speak.
Yes, as we speak, as of 13 minutes past 6 a.m. And it promises to even get as hotter as that into the day, nearly 30 degrees Celsius. Which is about 28 degrees. And finally, in Nairobi and its metropolitan region, 13 degrees Celsius, and nothing really major happening today. Much as rainfall na baridi sana, that is how it is going to be looking like. Highest temperatures you do expect as of today is 23 degrees Celsius. That is the weather. Speaking of what to expect, let's get into the news diary. And, you know, every single time for this year, we always say the 1st of July, effective 1st of July. So today is going to be one of those interesting days to see. First off, the registration of the Social Health Authority, commonly known as SHA, kicks off today. And Kenyans have been asked to undertake this process via the SHA website or just dial USSD code *147#. So according to the Minister of Health, the existing NHIF contributions and benefits will continue until the transition to SHI is complete. On to the next page, Education Matters. So according to Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Ezekiel Machogu, schools shall resume starting today after closing for the midterm break and the second term, which is expected to run till the first week of August. And so probably schools will be closing now for the long holidays around 5th of August there, where the schools shall have an extended 3-week holiday. And still on Education Matters, onto the next page, the 26,000 teachers hired in the first batch of the junior secondary school internship program will now be hired on permanent and pensionable terms beginning today. We'll be telling you more about that as well. Getting into something interesting with Fred now. So the adoption of something called accrual accounting from the previous cash system in the public sector will take effect as of today with a 3-year transition period permitted. So the move is expected to improve auditing process and to close corruption gaps. So this means that in the government, different department sectors, the ministries as well, they will move away from the cash system. So again, we do expect to see how this will be. Something else that is not listed there, but then will be happening today, the Church and Clergy Association of Kenya will be holding a press briefing on the ongoing debate on the Finance Bill 2024. So we do expect to hear what the church has to say from the news diary to Today in History.
On this day, protesters stormed Libya's parliament building in the eastern city of Tobruk, demonstrating against deteriorating living conditions and political deadlock. According to media reports, a protester driving a bulldozer had managed to smash through part of a gate, allowing other demonstrators to enter more easily, while cars of officials were set on fire.
History repeating itself.
Yes. Say Libya wanaangalia wanaona, you guys are doing what we did 2 years ago. Yes. It was actually, I was taking a look at it, and it was quite similarly to what the kind of events that transpired, quite similarly to what happened on Tuesday.
Okay.
The torching of cars for members of parliament, banning of certain parts of the parliament as well. It was just quite interesting.
Right.
Yes. Now to magazetini sasa.
All right, we'll start off with the Standard this morning. Ruto at pains to explain kidnaps and deaths as well as graft. That's the front page of the Standard. And they say that in an interview, President William Ruto was pressed hard to shed light on state-sanctioned abductions. And of course, you can remember what happened yesterday with that video of the former MP of Kapseret, Alfred Keter.
Yeah.
No, not for Kapseret, but a former MP. It was very interesting because the president was asked that question directly, and he said, no, that was not an abduction. He was being arrested.
He was being arrested.
Yes. Corruption in government and his relationship with his deputy. He promised a cabinet shake-up, dialogue, and a purge. Yes, those are just some of the things the president talked about. And of course, it forms a lot of the conversations online, especially on X, some of the responses he made. And we'll be looking at that later on.
He was the former Nandi MP.
Yeah, former Nandi MP,
yeah.
yes. No let-up as Gen Zs plan more protests. Yes, no let-up. And a photo there of what happened last week. More protests are planned for this week by the younger Kenyans, and we'll be here throughout the week to bring you the latest. Church condemns police brutality, calls for soberness is also a story that has been given prominence on the front page of the Standard, as well as registration for new health scheme begins today. But remember, they said that the benefits will not start immediately. SHIF is still not going to kick in.
Yeah.
So you'll still continue with the NHIF contributions. On the top strip of the front page of the Standard, yes, they talk about abductions, mystery of state agents in crime, with an image there of the Nandi MP, former Nandi MP, Alfred Keter, who was later released even after that abduction, or as the president called it, arrest. Yes. France votes in crucial snap election. So matters politics on the international scene in France. World Bank debars Kenyan firm with regard to fraud. You can read that story in the Standard as well. And in sports, Belgium in tricky round of 16 tie. Matters Euro 2024. Those are the highlights on the Standard today.
Belgium is playing France today, I believe.
All right.
It's going to be one of those interesting matches to take a look at. From the Standard, let's take a look at the Daily Nation. Gachagua opens up on his tiff with Ruto. They say Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has given his strongest indication yet that all is not well between him and his boss, President William Ruto. The DP, however, said they will iron out the issues, even as he blamed people who recently joined the government for fueling the falling out. He says DP says some people in Kenya Kwanza don't respect him and the office he holds. Other headlines on this front page of Daily Nation, on the bottom, principals plan to increase fees next term. So prep yourself for more fees for either your sibling or your child. So they say principals say they will be forced to increase school fees starting next term after the government reduced capitation per learner. So this is a big blow to parents whose children are returning to school starting today from the 1-week half-term break. So principals will have to find alternatives to keep schools running after the government said that it will not be able to disperse 22,244 Kenya shillings capitation per learner per year, but instead stick to 17,000 Kenyan shillings. So be wary of that. Even as the third term now begins, you have about 2 months kwanza to save up, just in case. Other headlines on still on the bottom strip. They say trials slow pace hands Trump election lifeline. And this past week, Donald Trump former US president as well as the current Joe Biden had a whole face-off. And it was quite interesting to watch as well. On the right strip, other headlines that are very interesting. Why state withdrew controversial bill with new land levy. They say the fear of triggering public anger by trying to amend the constitution through the back door forced the government to withdraw the contentious land laws amendment bill 2023 that was already under consideration in the National Assembly. And alarm police abduct, quote-unquote, Qatar in broad daylight. A conversation that other dailies do not have, that is on the very top strip. Kenya yet to submit Raila African Union candidacy. And they have more details on page 2, that is on the very top. Into sports news, NOK K83 athletes have hit Olympic mark. That in extensive is on the back page. Tungeflip hapo lakini pedi wetu wa magazeti amesema leo kidogo. And that is it's soul searching.
Yes.
Okay. That is the front page of Daily Nation in a nutshell. Kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo.
Gazeti la Taifa Leo, utekaji nyara waendelea, ndio habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Wasema wote wanaokamatwa wamekuwa wakosoaji wakuu wa serikali kuhusu masuala mbalimbali. Na pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele kuna picha ya aliyekuwa mbunge wa Nandi Hills Alfred Keter, ambaye ni wa hivi punde kukamatwa jijini Nairobi hapo jana. Ipo orodha ndefu ya waliokamatwa juma lililopita, japo baadhi yao wameachiliwa ilhali wengine hawajulikani waliko. Lakini tunajua kwamba aliyekuwa mbunge wa Nandi Hills Alfred Keter aliachiliwa jana. Na habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa Taifa Leo. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Ajabu ya kisiwa kusubiri umeme kwa miaka 61. That's how long this country has been independent. Kisiwa cha Manda, kaunti ya Lamu, kimekuwa kikitumia nishati mbadala tangu nchi ya Kenya ipate uhuru. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 5. Kwingineko, baa za Mlima Kenya sasa zafunguliwa. Hii ni baada ya serikali kusalimu amri na kuondoa marufuku dhidi ya biashara ya pombe. Kwingineko, rais ataka raia waache fujo, asisitiza gumzo. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, seneti ya kataa fedha za kaunti kupunguzwa. Maseneta wataka mgao wa hela za serikali kuu ukatwe ila kaunti zisiguzwe. Kutaendaje? Na kwenye spoti, Italia ya sagameno, Ufaransa ikipimwa leo. Uswizi yabandua bingwa mtetezi wa Euro Italia, huku Belgiji ikimkamia Ufaransa. Hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo hii leo.
Let's talk money matters now. The front page of Business Daily, they say how Kenya paid 197 billion cash shillings interest on debut Eurobond. Amount is 55.6% on 354 billion cash shillings borrowed in June back in 2014. They also say costly fixed rates put commercial debt under scrutiny. But pale chini, they say Gen Zs hold less than 3% state jobs, according to the PSC report. This was something I was telling you back in, I think, last week, but one.
That's a headline that will definitely annoy Gen Z.
Yes. This is what keeps the fire burning. The interview that happened yesterday and this is what keeps the fire burning, that revolution. So they say less than 3% of jobs in ministries, departments and agencies are held by Kenyans aged below 25. A report by the Public Service Commission shows, so citing concerns about low pay and lack of something about time and underlining difficulties in retaining young talent. Wengi wako above 40, aged 40. Okay. Another interesting headline is on the ticker, on the very right scroll. So apart from matters economy, they're saying Uganda's exports to Kenya fall on trade tariffs. Expenditure on Kenyan imports from Uganda declined 9.09% in the first quarter of the year, pointing to the impact of an on and off tiff between Nairobi and Kampala. But then something else that you need to take note of. They say the National Housing Corporation is stuck with houses valued at close to 1.3 billion cash shillings it has been unable to sell, even as the state pumps more through its affordable housing program. So on one hand, NHC is really trying to sell out these houses valued at 1.3 billion. Hapa kwingine serikali na tax ndiyo pia ijenge nyumba zingine. So where is the way forward really? Other headlines on the ticker: Kenya Re shareholders okay 840 million cash shillings dividend, and NSE farms want unsold KTDA tea destroyed. That, in a nutshell, is the front page of Business Daily.
Okay, my favorite headline is on the front page of the People Daily, and it reads, Pope condemns Ruto. Pontiff's envoy calls out president for killings of brave innocent children for speaking truth to power, as head of state maintains they were dangerous criminals. It is Van Meegan who delivered this message from the pontiff. He says, and I quote, the state machinery was shooting at free will, leaving behind dead bodies while the wounded ran into the square of the Holy Family Basilica. There was blood on the streets, youth killed in Githurai, internet influencers and student leaders abducted, tortured and humiliated. That's an indictment on the president, straight from the Vatican. And the highlights on the front page of this daily: politicians forced to abandon Harambes after protests, which is a plus, I think. Mmoja akisema yeye tumekubali hatutapeleka pesa kanisani. Ambao tukupate. Plans to roll out insurance hit a rock. That's matters SHIF. And Alama's former MP Ketera abducted. That is, of course, a big discussion and will continue being so. That's the front page of the People Daily. And lastly, The Star.
And the front page of The Star wrote at NHIF, they go the whole different conversation puzzle of 7 billion cash shillings payments. They say management on the spot for attributing some excess payouts to, get this, typing errors. Okay. They say 51 million cash shillings paid for patient admitted to different hospitals at the same time. There are just so many things to even make you angry this very early Monday morning. On the right, real quick, Obit politician Maina Wanjigi dies at 92. Also, MPs boycott DP Rigavi's Bomet show, and second batch of Haiti cops to leave mid-July. That, also that photo of President reading through a Bible. Sijui kama hiyo ni Revelation, najua kwa New Testament uko mwisho.
No.
Kwa Biblia. Sijui kama amefika kwa Revelation ama kwa...
Amefika kwa Revelation, that must be the very last. Interesting.
Oh, yes.
All right, and the only cartoon we have this today is Stano's take on the People Daily.
Yes, back to school. Sisi kama Gen Z tumeamua tunapeleka Azimio leader Raila Odinga back to school.
Kufunza baba mambo ya maandamano. Yes. Ni kama amesahau. How to do a peaceful maandamano.
Number 1, mobilize without inciting. Number 2, do not uproot the railway line. Number 3, no looting, no party, no tribe, no leader. And the most important one, no mkate nusu.
Interesting. That's the only cartoon we have this morning on the People Daily. And we'll be looking at these discussions and a lot more after the break with my panelists, Philip Kisia, Samuel Pogisi, and Kipruto Rapkirwa. They're already in studio. They'll be joining me on this set. So do stand by for that conversation and a lot more. Of course, the major focus being that interview by the head of state yesterday to senior editors. Interesting what he said, and we'll be trying to assess that as well. You can be part of that conversation, of course, through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You can tag me as well at Fred Indimuli. That's my X handle.
And Nyerengeta underscore at around 8 a.m. we deviate from matters politics and discuss health, particularly in men, infertility in men. A conversation that most men are really trying not to have, but then we just really have it. Stick around for that conversation, and later on matters maneno ya crucial kidogo hata nisahau hiyo maneno, but then a whole other matters health coming up your way. Don't forget.
This week, we're going to be focusing on how businesses keep a backup of their information.
Yeah, so they have to vet where they're storing their data. You don't just wake up and choose a cloud. Don't wait for the need to push you to the cloud, because an IT guy can delete something and you don't know what to do. You don't have a backup for it.
The Grind, this Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
All right, welcome back. You're definitely watching TV 47. This is the Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indemuli. Time for us to take a look at the state of the nation. A lot to talk about this morning, especially after that media roundtable that the president gave to senior editors yesterday from State House, Nairobi. What did he say and how is it being received across the country? This morning, we're privileged to have in studio my usual Monday panel. Kipruto Rapkirwa, former Minister for Agriculture. Karibu sana. Samuel Pugisio, former Minister for ICT. It's good to have you back in studio. And Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, also a former Town Clerk for Nairobi County. Gentlemen, karibuni sana. A lot can be said, but I want to start with what many felt that probably that interview, even before it happened, that probably it was not a very good idea for the president to speak to the media that soon after the protests and after all that happened last week. Bwana Kirwa, do you think it was the right thing for the president to do?
Well, let me say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that possibly suffering from a lot of anxiety and he would wish to communicate to the public. But I would have expected a no, because he should have improved on the content. He should have made it more friendly, the way he made the statement either after the fiasco at Parliament. He made a statement that if he was to follow up, or if he had made it on Monday, on the eve of the voting, perhaps that statement would have brought temperatures down. So my worry is that yesterday's press conference was sort of taking us back to the situation of him being combative, and perhaps looking that he does not seem to realize the challenges Kenyans are going through. In the sense that the finance bill was not about just a budget. It was a budget that is punitive and is taking away the little that we are supposed to retain in our pockets. Yeah.
Bwana Pogisio, it's been a very busy week for the president as far as addressing the nation. On Tuesday, he came out, guns blazing, even talking about promising a full and effective response to what he termed as treasonous acts. The following day, on Wednesday, he came out, talked about, made very major concessions in as far as the finance bill is concerned. At the weekend, I think on Friday, he, through his, I think, head of public service, gave out an indication that he suggested a way of engaging the youth through what they're calling the National Multi-Sectoral Forum, which the youth are still not interested in. And then yesterday on Sunday, he holds a media brief. And one wonders, is he clutching at straws?
Well, Fred, thank you. And also just good to be back. How about the president is alone? And the pressure is too much on a person when he is alone. I don't see those advisors, I don't see those communication teams, I don't see them. And the pressure is, answers are required in the country. And who is asking the questions? Young people. And their questions and their points of concern are serious enough to warrant the president to speak. Forums are dwindling. There are not very many forums. Sunday usually would be a very good forum because the churches welcome politicians. But this time there were no church pulpits, church forums for politicians. So he's alone. He's alone. Apart from his deputy and himself, nobody spoke this weekend. It's just him. And because the churches have made it clear, and not only the churches, the Gen Zs have made it very clear that no church appearance for politicians, and particularly the politicians who voted differently or voted a yes for the bill. So you're right. I mean, so now every forum possible the president must find to try and explain. A number of times, what should have turned out to be a good explanation ended up even creating more, problems, as it were. And it is time, if it were me, up to me, it's time to look back, sit back, and don't even try, because trying makes things worse. How it comes out is misread or read properly by the agencies and by the country at this particular point. So yeah, so you're asking if it was necessary for him to speak. It is very necessary. Otherwise, you know, the only problem is what to say.
But did it work? Did it work for him, Bolekisia? The fact that, yes, he came out and held this media conference, media roundtable with senior editors. Did it really work? Did it manage, do you think that session managed to quell the kind of agitation, the kind of simmering discontent across the country?
Fred, first of all, allow me to condole with the families that have lost. According to the president, 19, but the numbers are 24. But even if it was 1, it is a very sad state of affairs. Let me also wish a quick recovery to hundreds of the youth, our children, who are in hospitals recovering from the injuries that sustained during a peaceful demonstration. My brother, senior brother, Arap Kirwa, say that there's anxiety. Your president shouldn't be in that situation. Why? Because then you don't give us hope. But I think back to your question, Fred, did it have impact? I can tell you it backfired terribly because he didn't have an audience. Nobody wants to listen to him. Nobody, not even children. Because these children, when they see his face, either on whatever social media, on TV, whatever it is, they only can see the 12-year child who actually died as a result of being fired. Not 1 bullet, not 2, 8 bullets went through a little child of 12 years. 12 years.
Interestingly,
a child with 12 years,
that he had died.
12 years received 8 bullets. And the president didn't even know that this child had died. It was very sad. So you can see the goofs that the president made in an attempt to pacify the Kenyans. So in my view, Fred, it is like the man is trying to hold a tail of an elephant, which is already in the room. Trying to stop an elephant. The elephant is already in the room, you're holding the tail. It is a total waste of time, Your Excellency, Mr. President. And let me say this. I think you're asking whether, he succeeded. It was a total failure because who was he addressing? The people you're addressing, who are your employers, who voted you into office, have fired you. You are fired. So what are you doing in the office?
Do you get the feeling that the president is does not even understand, does not have a proper feeling of how the people are feeling in Kenya?
I don't think the man has any feelings. In fact, Fred, I am afraid to say so, and with a lot of respect and humility, that we could be dealing with a man who is not okay. Because any ordinary human being, that you are in charge of a country and you lose lives, not just old fellows like ourselves who have seen everything, who are just waiting to go to the grave. That's what you are waiting for. You actually you brought an end to a life of a child who's 12 years old. We have never been this long. So I think if I was advising him, I would have advised him to completely go off air and reflect. Reflect on what has happened under his leadership, that we've lost children. The youngest being 12 years. I would advise him to shut up, to get off air. This is the time probably he should be talking with those intercessors and maybe even those fellows they bring from Germany or somewhere, some country to pray. I think this is the time we need prayers, my brother.
In response to that question about the deaths that have occurred, the president had this to say. He says he has no blood on his hands. Let's listen in.
24 people dead. Your Excellency, do you have blood on your hands?
I have no blood on my hands. 19 people, to the record that I have from the security agencies, are dead. Very unfortunate. As a democracy, that should not be part of our conversation. 2.4 billion of property has been destroyed.
All right. 2.4 billion shillings worth of property destroyed, 19 dead. But the president sounded more concerned about the property that was destroyed.
Oh, yes. Yeah, precisely. I think you've captured my thinking. He seemed to have just brought the colossal loss, which we say also is unfortunate. But I think he should have spent more time empathizing with the families of those who are passed on, and also condemning anybody that was involved. Like what my brother Philip Kisia said, if there were 8 bullets in a young child, it means this is somebody who was doing it as a way of just destroying that innocent life. And it seems there is a bit of vengeance emanating from our security forces, perhaps informed by other ulterior motives. But more important, the president should realize that he is the chief executive of this country. And any single Kenyan being killed by state operatives, that squarely lies on his hands. So he cannot cleanse his hands that he has no blood on his hands. He has a lot of blood on his hands. Even those who are hurt and they are in hospital, really he has to do something. Let me also pick from what Philip said. He needs to reflect. 1, on what is happening. 2, on the manifesto he presented to the people of Kenya. 3, on the promises that he made as he was campaigning to be the president. In reflection, he needs to realize some of the things he said are not tenable. Some of the things that he put in the manifesto are not likely to be achieved. Then reduce that manifesto to a document that can be used as policy document for the government of the day for purposes of implementing within the resources available to Kenyans what is feasible, and also reducing on excess promises that he continues making. Finally, on this particular issue, the president can do us a lot of good. As he goes off fair for like 2 weeks, he tells his ministers to resign en masse. And after that resignation, or he dissolves the cabinet, after that resignation, he does not have to throw away everybody. He now carefully selects a team that will deliver. Because my worry, Fred, is not even about the next election. He may win or he may not he may lose the next election. But what is important is that what is happening in the intervening period might precipitate a situation where change of government is through another means other than the electoral process that all of us in Kenya are used since for the last 60-something years or so. And if that process goes off the rail, we are not likely to come back soon to ensure that we have the stability that we have enjoyed over the period. But if the president behaves the way he's behaving, I can assure him he has no capacity to last for another 1 year.
All right, and he took the opportunity to promise more things. He promised a shake-up in government, a purge. As Bonakirwa rightly said, we are yet to see any condemnation, especially in as far as the conduct of the police in how they contained the protests. That in itself says a lot. And he was asked this question about the fact that Kenyans do not associate him with the truth. Even the promises he makes at this point, many Kenyans are very skeptical about whether or not he'll actually follow through, Bwana Pugisio.
Yeah, I saw someone, I think it was one of our friends, a lawyer, was advising that when you are already in a deep pit, the best thing is to stop digging further, because this is like digging even deeper. You know, you're already down there and you're digging. This is a very difficult situation for president, by the way. Any president would be difficult. And I see my senior brother here, Arap Kirwa, has offered his services almost for free. I think he should charge for it. That we have a very difficult situation for any president. This would be a president of any country. But the situation is, how do you get out of that situation? This is not a situation where you continue thinking you have the answers and that nobody else has answers. And by coming out to address it through the media or appealing to the churches to appeal to the young people, that doesn't cut it. We already are in this situation where the week is going to start tomorrow. It's going to be another week, another difficult week. And it has not been addressed up to now. What would have prevented the people from going to the streets tomorrow has not been addressed. Because when the young people went to the hospitals to donate blood, they went to the hospitals and they have actually raised money to help those people themselves. The government has said nothing about what they're going to do to help those people, those families. I heard one grandmother looking for her grandson. And even that did not shake the system. And there are many other mothers. What happened in Githurai, for example? How do you explain that? And of course, I mean, there's nobody who's going to say I have blood in my hands. I mean, but is that what the country is looking at? The way the country looks at you now is that you actually do. And the way they believe it now, because of the way the brutality that was meted on these young people when they entered parliament, and nobody has spoken about those guys who are snipers. By the way, by the time you prepare snipers, you have intentions.
Yeah.
I mean, the snipers don't just come out and go to climb KICC or somewhere to shoot. They have intentions already, they are planned. So no, I think the more the questions, the more the wrong answers come. And I don't know why. It is about time that the president probably looked for people like Kirwa, looked for other people who can actually just tell him point blank, my friend, this is the situation, and just don't say anymore. Don't talk anymore. I'm still wondering what happened to the people around the president.
Well,
where are they gone?
What happened to the people around the president? He says his communication team failed. On this question of the perception that Kenyans have of the president, that question was posed to him, the fact that Kenyans do not seem to trust him at all. And this is what he had to say.
Because I need you to address a very important issue here, and that is one of a trust deficit. There are Kenyans who watch you, Your Excellency, and I don't know whether you are aware that they don't trust what you say. They don't believe what you say. Are you aware, Your Excellency, for example, that a lot of Kenyans increasingly don't associate the truth with you?
That is your assessment, because you have never associated the truth with me from the beginning.
No, there's quite a number of Kenyans.
No, I mean, that is
we asked people before we came here this evening.
That's the assessment.
Yeah.
And many of those that responded to me directly, and to even our platforms, on KTN News, on Spice FM, on NTV, on Citizen, and we were asking them, what question should we ask the president this evening? And the one thing that many of them were saying is, when will he stop lying? So it's not Linus.
Can he tell us the truth this time?
Let me say the following. I told the people of Kenya that I would reduce the prices of fertilizer from 7,000 to 2,500. I don't know how that is a lie, because they buy it at 2,500.
Okay.
I told the people of Kenya we're going to have a housing program. a housing program is underway in Kenya. I can tell you, Linus, that whether you believe me or not, facts will not change.
Yeah, and
facts are not changed by who says it.
And allow me to step back a bit, Your Excellency.
And facts are very stubborn.
Allow me to step back a bit.
Yes.
And what I'll do is we'll play clips, just a little combination of clips of yourself speaking not too long ago, and I want us to listen to that. I'll stand out of the way because you said it's me that doesn't share the truth with you, and I would like you to respond to yourself, to the clips that we are going to play.
But
If,
you see, Linus.
Let's watch that, Your Excellency.
I think, Linus,
yeah.
you don't bring clips that are in a biased way. You know, you select maybe something that has not happened.
No.
Can you be fair and select clips across the board? What I said and has been done, and what I said and maybe has not been done.
So let's watch that. Maybe you can watch that. Yeah.
These people don't understand the damage they are doing to the people and the economy of Kenya. Kwa hii taxes wanaongeza usiku na mchana. Na mimi nataka niwaulize watu wa hapa Manga, tafadhali, mkiona tumesimama hapa mbele yenu, tunawaambia kwamba tutengeneze hiyo serikali inakuja ambayo inaelewa lugha ya mwananchi wa kawaida. If you have good ideas, why do you need a police? Why do you need blackmail? Why do you need intimidation? If you have better ideas, sell them to the people of Kenya. There are enough intelligent people in Kenya to differentiate what is good from what is better and what is best. Ni jambo mbaya sana kama tutatumia askari polisi kuumiza wananchi wasio na hatia, eti kwa sababu wako na maoni tofauti ya kisiasa.
I agree with that. It is not fair to use the police to harass citizens who have a contrary opinion. And that is perfect.
That's what they are accusing.
Barakisia, that question was very apt for the president. The issue of trust deficit, of which we've discussed very much on this platform. Yeah. What do you have to say to what he responded and how he responded to that?
Fred, even before we talk about trust deficit that my brother, senior brother, has been talking about for the last few months that have been appearing on this program, let me remind the president, because in his own words, we've lost 2.4 billion. In his own words, because of destruction of property. Let me tell the president that that property that has been destroyed can be rebuilt using our taxes. But the lives that we've lost, 24 of them, and maybe others will probably die. 24 of them, we are counting 24. We cannot recover those lives. It doesn't matter how much money he pays the families as compensation. Life is lost, it cannot be recovered. And I also must say that, you know, the president, he's the president of Kenya. He's a pathological liar. Everything that comes out of his mouth is lies. He has never been known to speak the truth. The man is actually allergic to truth. This is not, I mean, between President Ruto and truth, I think these are completely foreign things. So, you see, when you have the president being asked very, very serious issues that touch on the lives of the people, and he's talking about fertilizer, that he has now provided fertilizer, which he has never provided. Mheshimiwa Kirwa, Mheshimiwa Pogisho, these are farmers. I'm also a farmer. We never saw that fertilizer. As a matter of fact, we bought fertilizer at 6,500. And even the fertilizer he says he provided was fake fertilizer. How can he even on earth look at us on our faces, the president of the Republic of Kenya, and tell us that he has provided fertilizer when we know it was a scam, it was a scandal. There was no fertilizer. We were actually supplied with rocks, pebbles, and soil, and donkey manure. And the man is addressing the nation as if he's addressing kindergarten children. Mr. President, we're not children. He even talked about housing. This thing has collapsed. It is not working. Please, even if you build houses, thousands and millions of those houses today, and your people are dying as a result of brutal force from security agencies, dying from other things, diseases and hunger, who will occupy those houses, Mr. President? Who are you building the houses for? Are you building the houses for donkeys? Or are you building the house for people? If you are building the house for people, you have duty, a moral duty and obligation to protect the lives of Kenyans. Okay. So I can tell you, without any fear of contradiction, that nobody, at least from every 10 people I speak to, maybe only one believes that Ruto once in a while speaks the truth. But 9 out of 10 Kenyans will tell you this man has never been truthful. He has never been known to speak truthfully.
Okay, he's been accused of being a master of doublespeak, and you saw the discomfort once the interviewers suggested that they play his clips from what he has said previously. He seems to believe that people do not have access to the kind of things he has said before. That in itself says a lot, that he believes in what he tells Kenyans every day, no matter whether or not Kenyans actually know better. Bonakirwa.
Yeah, you know, the president is still in the generation that I belong, not realizing that these Gen Zs, they seem to have a lot of information that can date back to many years, and they just need to consult with the media, and they will get all that, all the clips, perhaps even more than 10 years ago. They'll be able to play back and see whether there is consistency in your statements all through. So he assumes that because we are dealing with so many problems in our society, people will not remember to go back to the archives and bring out what he said. And I just also want to remind him that even the time I was an MP, you can say something in January, by December you have forgotten. But people in your own constituency still remember this is what you told them in January. So right here, they don't have a lot of things, because perhaps you meet an individual twice in a year or 3 times in a year, and what you say to them, because they believe you, has a huge impression. So what he's doing is trying to do a lot of disservice to himself, and is trying to fight a shadow. Perhaps what is bombarded in the social media, because I remember he entered is it called Twitter, briefly. After 5 minutes, he went away quietly, but still people continued bombarding him. And perhaps that is what he's trying to answer. And that's why even in areas where he should be less combative, he's totally combative. I just wanted to remind him of a number of things. Why doesn't he like institutionalizing anything? Even this affordable housing. There is a National Housing Corporation, which I'm told has 1.3 billion worth of houses that they cannot sell. He should be able to interrogate and ask himself, why didn't we channel even this money through that institution? That is what makes people suspect him even on areas. Perhaps he may be innocent or he may not be innocent. Why doesn't he institutionalize SHIF that he has now introduced? He did not do the normal transition that when myself or Mheshimiwa Bokisha and I were in Parliament, we knew for every new institution, it has to take over even some of the liabilities from the previous institution, such that at the end of the day, workers don't suffer, and even people who are owed don't suffer. And people believe this is a system that is continuing concern. But when you seem to be running away from structures which are institutionalized, people get suspicious. So my advice to the president is that he should be less combative, he should be less in terms of trying to prove himself innocent, but practically do the things that people expect somebody in that elevated office does whenever he's faced with a challenge. And also remove these abductions. Whether he calls arrest or abduction, what we know is that in a normal process, if I have an issue with the security forces, they will inform me that we are arresting you because of 1, 2, 3, and you have the leeway either to say something or to keep quiet until you are in a court of law. So like what happened to Alfred Keter yesterday is something despicable. And he had the audacity to say he was not abducted, he was arrested. You see, there is a difference between arresting and abducting. When people, let's say, when we get out of this place, people get into the compound of this institution and start taking away Philip Kisia, it will be an abduction. Because if it's arrest, he must be processed until we know that he's now being arrested because perhaps he was with Keter yesterday and Keter has become somebody who is a danger to security forces. So these are some of the things that worry me. Even the other day, he talked about criminal gangs. We want to see people in court who have been arrested because they belong to a certain gang system that is doing visited mayhem to Kenyans. Otherwise, I suspect it might have been the police who are doing it with the way or with the hope that they were going to disrupt the smooth demonstrations by our young girls and boys. So it worries me, Fred, and I think the president should realize he no longer has that leeway of trying to identify an enemy and fight that particular enemy. You know, he identified in 2007 that the enemy was 41 against 1. And immediately, Raila became his enemy as he was shifting camp to have a chance to work with Uhuru. And after their first election, Uhuru became his enemy. And it was the end of the Uhuru regime, now created a society of hustlers and dynasties. Today, he has nobody to blame. He's the chief executive. He's on top of the pyramid. So unless he's to blame it on the gods or the devil, whichever is the case, because I'm told the devils were Kaunda, that's why I don't want to do it.
Interesting. Pugisio, when it comes to the issue of trust deficit, that's your pet subject. And the president does not appear to have grasped that concept. The fact that people do not believe what he says, yet it still comes out to talk more and give out more information. Is there a risk when people do not trust you, but then you still keep talking?
Well, if you define trust as a confident belief in someone or something, then you realize once the confidence is gone, the belief is gone, they're absolutely left with an empty thing, which is a trust deficit. And the trust deficit, as you've seen even through the interview, that even the guys who are going to interview him, if they had a little bit of trust, whatever was left was taken out right there. Because the president becomes so defensive of this trust. To rebuild trust, character is involved in rebuilding trust. Compassion is involved in rebuilding trust. Competency is involved in building trust. Commitment. Consistency is one of the issues, the things that actually, one of the 8 pillars of trust. Consistency. And that's how people trust you. If you do things the same way and people can trust you, they know that Philip Kisia is going to say this, he's going to do this. That is how trust is. Repeatedly. But also, just compassion on people, on your own people, just compassion. When a child is shot and repeatedly shot, and you have not condemned anybody in the forces. Instead, the president kept on saying they have done a good job. And I was just saying that's how you lose trust. And the only way is, and I can actually advise, is clarity in communication is very important in rebuilding trust. When there's doublespeak, you lose trust. If you're clear, I saw a clip the other day where a man in the village was speaking to his daughter to go and charge the phone. Instead, he said, "Kwende weka kwa moto." And the child went straight to the kitchen instead of going to charge. Clarity in communication. So that child didn't know what he meant, go and put it on the fire. He meant go and charge it. But the small kid went straight and put it in the fire. It is true that we have what you call a trust deficit in the country right now. And I think what the president should be talking about right now is how do I rebuild that trust? Not only with the Gen Zs, it's a much more difficult job, but even with the church. Even with the church has come out.
It seems to be having an easier time with the church.
No, not necessarily. The church has now come out and said, you can't anymore speak in front here. If you want, every politician now has to go out. They have even refused now funerals and so on, because that was the strength of the forum for the president to address the nation every week. And he's chosen politicians every week. Now the chosen politicians are in hiding. It's only the president now. And of course, his deputy, who is also speaking from a different perspective. And by the way, that's a very interesting thing that has happened to us also. Now remember the president, when he was deputy president, this is how he treated his boss. And all of a sudden, the script is happening again. So I'm afraid that somebody has to come to the president who is not his usual hangarounds, somebody else. And I know people have proposed, maybe several people, who can actually come and tell him the truth in a very nice way, that things are not what you think. You are no longer in control of the situation.
Okay.
Rebuild trust. Find a way of rebuilding trust. It's gone.
Okay. One indication of that is the fact that on X, just before the interview started, the trending hashtag was Ruto must go. It was the very first question he was asked. We'll play the video shortly. But looking at the top trend right now, which is hours later after the interview, Ruto must go is still the top trend. That interview did not work at all to change this. Just before you respond to that, let's listen to what the president had said in response to the question with regard to this hashtag.
Public and the protesters, the Gen Z, some of who actually formed the base of your election campaign, are telling you, we are disappointed. You've not delivered. Hashtag Ruto must go. What do you tell them?
Let me tell them the following. Good friends, the young people of our nation, my sons and daughters who supported me to win the election. I hear you. In fact, I saw, I think it was on your headline, a gentleman from my village who was saying, the president has let us down. Many children in this village are not getting jobs locally. That is why they are going abroad. Little did he know, my good friend from my village, that the children, the 500 of his colleagues around our village, are actually part of my plan on export of labor. They have actually, I intentionally supported them to leave the country because we got them jobs outside Kenya. So I am telling the young people of our nation to be patient. Our housing program is rolling. We will be hiring more architects, we will be hiring more engineers, we will be hiring more professionals to support our housing program. In the next 2 years, we will have 300, maybe 1,000 people working in that space. Be patient. We are sorting out the challenges that are facing our digital space. We're rolling out our digital space. Young guys, by the end of next year, God willing, we will have a digital hub in every ward in Kenya because we have already started that process. Every TVET in Kenya today has an ICT hub with young people monetizing their talent.
The question was what he has to say about the hashtag Ruto must go. Did you get an answer, Bwana Kisia?
Well, Fred, I don't know whether you got an answer, because I think, let me say this. I actually reluctantly and painfully listened to the president. Because, I believe in giving people chances. I've given so many chances, but I believe in giving somebody a chance, a last chance. For me, I thought maybe this time round, the man has gone through some reflection, and he had something very, very serious to relay to the people of Kenya. In fact, one thing that I expected the president to say was to apologize unconditionally to the people of Kenya, to apologize and empathize with the families who have lost their loved ones. Okay? But instead, he started talking about housing program. He even forgets that this housing thing, idea, was actually the idea that emanated from my administration when I was at City Hall. He has forgotten, but I'll keep on reminding him. So I know what we need to do with housing better than he does. But we're not here to talk about that one today. I think the message that is coming out from almost every Kenyan is that we have fired you. You have no job. We fired you. Okay? That's why they're saying Ruto must go. Now, why is the president still hanging on the job? Why? Because when you have been fired by your employer, you pack off and go home in peace and find something else to do. He doesn't have to be president. We have so many people who can do the job. So unless there's something that is really causing him to continue staying in office, maybe that's what he should be telling the public. But when the public, your employer, has lost confidence in you and they have fired you, they haven't given you a letter to go home through the hashtags, Ruto must go, they are singing in church, in any social place, children, mothers, grandmothers, even the dead are now singing and asking him to resign and go home. So I don't know in which language the president would want us to communicate. And we talked about president being truthful. And my brother Kirwa mentioned my friend's name, Alfred Kiter. Yes, I confirm Alfred is my friend. He's actually a family friend. And when I heard the president say, he even was, at pain, to talk about Alfred. He was not mentioning them. Say, like what happened today, he was arrested. What arrest? We saw with our own eyes. He was actually abducted, commando style, yeah, in front of his family, leave alone just children
from church,
and leaving church. Mm-hmm. And we thought we have always seen him as a believer. How can a man leaving a place of worship with his young children, because Alfred's child, who is my daughter's friend, is 12 years, and you arrest him in a manner that you did, not even arrest, it was a very terrible scene. I don't know what those children are going through right now. Of course, we spent some time with them because, your father is arrested, you're just leaving church. Of course, now they had to escort the father. You can imagine what he has done. He has actually destroyed those children. He has destroyed them. And forever, they'll have that image. Forever and ever, they'll have that bad image. So you can imagine my daughter, who is a friend, who is not around, we have a family chat group. The first thing she posted, he said, is that Sasha's father, because she noticed a vehicle. And why is he being arrested in a manner that is being arrested? These are children who can see. It is not even us who are talking. It is a Gen Z. and Generation Y, who are addressing the president. They are 75% of the population, and they have said, boss, please pack off and go.
Okay.
It is not, they have said 75% of the kids. The balance, which is about 25%, maybe another 90% of that 25% is all saying the same thing. So if the entire nation is asking you to pack off and go, why would you hang on to an office? What really makes you hang on to the office? What makes you believe that you are the only person who can provide leadership?
Okay.
I think the man is suffering from what we call the big L syndrome. I'm the leader. And without you, because even at some point you talk about my program, I have my vision. And for heaven's sake, we don't care about your vision. We care about our shared vision. We have our vision that we share. That is the one that should be driving us, not your vision. If you have a vision, well and good. But your vision should be limited to yourself and your family.
Okay.
Don't impose it on us.
Bwana Kirwa, yesterday the president admittedly said that his communication team may have failed. But even listening to the president himself, it would appear that he has a shortage of messages that probably Kenyans would welcome. In response to this question on the hashtag Ruto must go, he quickly goes back to the issue of housing. Any other question, quickly he goes back to the issue of fertilizer, issue of digital hubs. These are things he has said over and over, and it would appear he's regurgitating the same message. Clearly, he has no new message for Kenyans. At a time when this agitation and there's a simmering discontent, surely, as a leader, he better come up with a better message for Kenyans, don't you think?
Well, he still, perhaps he has not addressed the issue of communication, because we've insisted in this forum, Fred, that the president has two major problems. Internal communication as a government, because a government must be able to communicate with itself, such that we do not get information coming out as if each ministry stays in a pigeonhole. Because, as we've said before, cabinet meetings is supposed to be a clearinghouse of issues emanating from each ministry, and with the benefit of wisdom, knowledge, and intellect across the board, they are supposed to share and assist each other in defining a position for each and every ministry, and that's why we talk of collective responsibility. But this government has been behaving as if it's just a group of people who are together. They don't care what is happening in another ministry, and they deal it that way. So I think the president is still yet to improve his internal communication, creation of content that is supposed to go to the public, and also weighing some of the issues that have a lot of weight when it gets to the public domain, because that determines the sensitivity with which the government of the day handles the public. Finally, for him to improve and is to show us how many policemen, because he said for everything there is CCTV. How many policemen are being arraigned before a court of law on the shootings that happened on those 2 or 3 days that there was a challenge in the streets of Nairobi or elsewhere. In that way, the president will be believable. Finally, Fred, I just want to remind my good brother, the president of this republic, that the people who are most affected and they feel so betrayed are the people who supported him. Those who did not support him, they seem to be saying, we told you, it has happened. But those who supported him are even more bitter than those who did not support him, because they expected that he was going to deliver on the promises that he made in the run-up to the last year, 2022 elections. And of course, on the same breath, remind him of Paul Joseph Goebbels, who was minister in charge of propaganda in the government of Hitler, that you can lie until you believe your lies. But when reality sets in, you will not be able to stay a day longer. Because when Hitler knew that he was going to commit suicide, what he did was to hand over to Paul Joseph Goebbels, now to take over the country. This guy had been lying for many years. When the reality came that now he was going to run the show, he poisoned his children, his wife, and he himself committed suicide. He never ruled a day longer. So this may catch up with him sooner than later, because I'm not worried about him in 2027. If he gets re-elected, it's okay. He's the people of Kenya. I'm worried about this transition that Philip seems to believe in. This transition is dangerous. We may get to a situation that the people of Kenya will not get out of it safely.
All right. I think we're due for a break right now, if I may get that direction. Yes, but even as we continue with this conversation, there's the issue of Parliament. And if we may go back to last week and what we saw with the concessions made, especially on the finance bill, a day before that is when we experienced a lot of trouble, even inside Parliament. We witnessed members of the National Assembly bulldoze the finance bill in a record 2 hours, despite protesters being outside. Then a day later, when the president made concessions, they were there in Parliament clapping for the same. Yesterday, the president said that those members of the National Assembly were the real heroes in this country. And one wonders, does the president really understand where the problem lies, Bwana Pogisio?
Well, this parliament, as it were, even when there had been those who voted yes and had been literally thrown under the bus by the president, when now he asked them to go and delete everything, and they were there sitting behind the president clapping. Applauding. And they don't understand the anger in the country. They seem to be completely sheltered and blinded from what they did. The other thing which I felt was very, very sad actually about Parliament was the day after people have been shot dead in Parliament, the place is desecrated. They still come to that hall to debate the military coming to the streets, as if there's absolutely no respect for the place. And it was not like, let's come and maybe cleanse the place or even come and pay homage to these kids. No, it's just business as usual, so insensitive. I would not have accepted to enter that parliament the day after. It was desecrated by the shootings and the dead, the kids who have been shot dead inside there. And I think that one goes straight to the Speaker of the National Assembly. Even the Senate, both of them, I think they had sessions thereafter. You cannot do that. That place already was a scene of crime. It was a crime scene. Should have been cordoned off immediately. And they could meet anywhere, by the way. There is parliament machinery. They could have met anywhere. The truth is that the way that the parliamentary group is made is such that the parliamentary group does not seem to represent the people. They seem to just take orders from the executive and not believe that the people are watching. They think that the executive shelters them enough, protects them enough from the people. So by being shown, by being seen at the forefront with the president, the day after you have actually done what angered the people, I got lost. I could not believe that members of parliament who know, and I have said it here, that the responsibilities of a member of parliament is representation, not to the executive, but to the people who elected you. And I had one member of parliament saying, I owe my election to the president, not to you guys, telling the electorate. And you can't believe that it's a politician. What kind of politician would that have been? So what that tells you is that we've been so captured that we are completely numb about our responsibilities of legislation, representation, oversight. Absolutely out of the way. Right. As long as we get some little money here, we get bribed here and there just to retain us within that. I can't believe it. I mean, actually I like the way the Gen Zs are now saying, those salaries and sitting allowances must be cut.
Okay. Hold that thought there. We'll be back to discuss the conduct of Parliament and what the President had to say about the National Assembly. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Landscape, an achievement we couldn't have done without you, our audience. Your support has propelled us to new heights and has earned us recognition. Our journalists have been honored for their exemplary work and commitment to excellence. We are now the home of the Journalist of the Year, an award backed by our very own Elizabeth Atieno.
Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Elizabeth Ochieng.
These recognitions are a testament of our growth story. You inspire us to push boundaries, tell compelling stories, and keep informing you with integrity and professionalism. We are committed to giving you more news, more stories, and more entertainment. Stay tuned to TV47.
Members of Parliament are representatives of the people, elected. They are not fools and they are not mad. And I want to say, one day, Kenya will know that the MPs who voted yes are the true heroes of Kenya. Those are the people who saw the opportunity for us to unchain our country from debt trap and take our country to the future. Let me tell you, Joe, and I want to say this to the people of Kenya, that my plan was to make sure that in the next 3 years, maximum 4 years, we have a balanced budget, where Kenya is not the country where we are today. Let me tell you, gentlemen, and I want to tell the people of Kenya the following. We are in a very difficult financial position. This is something that the people of Kenya must understand, and that is why I am happy that we have a crisis. This crisis will help us be candid and speak to each other properly and contextualize where we are. We raised this year 2.3 trillion from our taxes. Of that 2.3 trillion, 1.1 trillion went to debt financing. 1 trillion went to salaries. What did we do? We had to go and borrow to pay the counties. We had to go and borrow to fund our education. We had to go and borrow to fund. Now, the funding gap we have done with the finance bill going down is that instead of borrowing 600 billion, we are going to borrow 600 billion plus 346 billion. That is close to $1 trillion. And let me tell you, my good friends.
The president there speaking, one, with regard to the conduct of members of the National Assembly and as far as the finance bill is concerned, and secondly on the debt situation in the country. A lot of questions there. But let's start off with the conduct of the National Assembly. At a time when the president is fighting an agitation and discontent on the finance bill, reject finance bill is a cry all over, one of the trending hashtags, and that forced him to concede and withdraw completely all the clauses from that finance bill. How do you then come days later and say that those MPs were the heroes and they did correct?
You know, these members of parliament, it is true that we are the ones who elected them. And therefore, they're supposed to be honorable. But from their behavior, they do not deserve that title, honorable, because they have not behaved in a honorable manner. They're actually horrible persons. So, and you see, we have a set of MPs, a majority of them, maybe about 70 or 60% of them, who fit in this description of Arabs. The Arabs say it is only the stomach that sends a signal of hunger, but the brain never gets that signal. They fit squarely in that description of the Arabs. So you see, the president has actually called these people who are supposed to be honorable, but I've said they are not. He has called them heroes. A few of them, I think there are 215, who he has pronounced to be heroes. And therefore, he is suggesting that Kenyans who are over 55 million are mad. We are mad. 55 million of us are mad. We do not understand. We cannot comprehend. We cannot contextualize what the intentions are. So we are stupid. We are mad. And the 215 are smart and are heroes, according to his own definition. There is something terribly wrong here. We have 215 versus over 50 million people who think you are mad. They are pointing a finger at you and they are telling you you are mad, you are incompetent, you are corrupt, and you are pointing back saying, who can be right? There are over 50 million Kenyans or 215 Kenyans who sit in parliament. Again, the disconnect we're having with this president, he keeps on talking about my plan, my plan. For heaven's sake, we are not interested in your plan. We have a plan as Kenyans. We have given you the job to implement our plan. Please implement our plan and keep your plan to yourself and your family. Finally, this issue of deficit that we are facing, that he's talking about, we will be short of about 1 trillion shillings and we're going to be in problems. Which problems? The problem is that he has refused to deal with corruption. If His Excellency, the President, just dealt with corruption, and in his own admission, or rather his administration, has actually confirmed, and it's on record, they have said, we lose 3 billion shillings every day. Mm-hmm. So if he can, if he can deal with that hole, the 3 billion that we're losing every day, we have over 1 trillion shillings that he can over 1 trillion he can find to finance that budget.
We'll come back to that issue of debt because he also said something very interesting that we still need to borrow the 346 billion, despite the fact that they are talked about budget cuts. But on this issue of parliamentarians, this interview yesterday was intended to calm the discontent around the finance bill. The fact that people are not happy with parliamentarians. People are not happy with the fact that despite their own sentiments about this finance bill 2024, members of the National Assembly still went ahead and passed it. And the president was forced to make concessions despite the fact that even the members of parliament were behind him and clapping for the same. Then he comes out in an interview that's supposed to calm the situation, and he says those MPs are the heroes of the day. Did he get it right? What was the intention of having this interview in the first place?
Well, I think the president is still in denial. Remember, even when he said he has rejected the finance bill in total, he went ahead to tell us the good things that would have arisen from that finance bill. And yesterday, he reaffirmed that particular position because he still believes that that finance bill should have gone through. This therefore tells you the president is still highly in denial. He doesn't seem to be living in Kenya. He doesn't seem, perhaps because he's been out of the country many times than in Kenya, he does not seem to read the reality on the ground, that people are against punitive taxes. People say we can make do with budget deficits as long as we are able to restrain ourselves from eating where we have not invested. The other issue, which was also anomalous, is that the same members of parliament, now the president is calling them heroes, they're to get into the ambulance to be taken away from parliament, instead of taking the sick and the wounded to hospitals. It became now heaven for members of parliament, and I was seeing some of them were being airlifted from the top floor of KICC. This therefore tells you these are individuals who are insulated from the reality of the day, perhaps because they use those choppers to their constituencies. Mheshimiwa Bogisha and I know that many times as we were members of parliament, you travel from here by car. It goes through Nakuru, Eldoret, Kitale, Makutano, all the way to Kachiliba, to his constituency. And as he comes back, there are those consultations. But today, ordinary member of parliament jets into the constituency by a chopper, gets out of the constituency by a chopper, and therefore the reality that is supposed to interact with him as he goes to the constituency and as he gets out is totally removed from some of those realities. This therefore tells you the president is not in Kenya. If he was in Kenya, he would not have said police did a good job. He would not have called those members of parliament heroes of our society. He would have told us, yes, we have taken so many policemen to court. Yes, something happened that was terrible, and perhaps it is part of miscommunication, because the public doesn't know that the president means well. They actually believe the president enjoys with a lot of glee whenever somebody is in serious pain. That's why one tax after the other. And it worries me whether the president still wants to be our president or has lost hope of ever being our president. Why is he trying to prove to us that he's right when we know that he's wrong? He cannot pretend. In this case, Mr. President, you are wrong.
Okay. And with regard to the genuineness of some of the statements that the president makes, last week when he made that concession on Wednesday, saying he's withdrawing the finance bill and sending a memo for the withdrawal of each and every clause from the finance bill 2024. He also talked about austerity measures. He went at length to talk about how his government and he will lead the way. Yesterday he even mentioned that they would do away with some of the offices that people have complained about, especially with regard to the spouses of the top leadership of this country. Yet in the same interview, he talks about the debt, and he includes the entire 346 billion shillings that was to be collected through the Finance Bill 2024 as part of the amount that he will need to borrow to finance the same. What exactly is the president telling us? Is he even genuine when he talks about issues of austerity?
Well, that is how he loses trust immediately. You know, the whole purpose of defeat the finance bill is so that that amount of money is not brought back to us through borrowing or any other way. The idea is what you have already, now live within that means. That's what the people of Kenya are saying. Live within your means. And he had accepted. He says, yes, we're going to cut this. So by borrowing the same amount of money again, you're just bringing finance bill back through the back door. And that's not good for the people. And that's where trust is lost. And I do believe that, like I have said, that the president is alone. The president is alone. I don't think he has infused his ideas with the ideas of other people about these matters. And I think what's going to be too tough for our president is that he's going to exhaust his thinking and thoughts.
Do you feel that he's already overwhelmed by this situation, that he no longer can
handle? You carry a big, yeah, I mean, Philip Kish has talked about the elephant in the room. I mean, it's already there. And the situation then should be, how do I get out of this situation? Instead of digging deeper, digging further, how do I get out of this pit? It's already there. and let me just say this. The president should not remind Kenyans about borrowing. That is one of the things the Kenyans don't want to hear about borrowing. Because he said before he became president that these people who are there in that office had borrowed too much. And when you come and tell Kenyans we're going to borrow $1 trillion, that rings in their heads so many times that what were we just communicating here before? We were just saying austerity measures. Remove these CAS positions, cut down on certain things, let your ministers, some of them go, and deal with the issues of extravagance and opulence being displayed everywhere. If you look at every weekend, a minister is going home in a chopper, a member of parliament is going on a chopper. If you look at all that money, you can actually raise the 346 billion just by stopping corruption, just by stopping the theft and the bleeding that is going on in this economy. If you do that, you'll actually raise more than 346 billion. So you don't have to borrow.
Okay. The budget deficit is around 650 billion shillings. And the president now says that whatever was to be raised through the finance bill, he will be forced to borrow. This is a pronouncement of the president that he is going to borrow 1 trillion shillings to finance that budget. That in itself says a lot. Whatever he's talking to us about austerity, he does not mean it. What is your assessment? I'm not even sure what kind of question to ask when it comes to that issue about the debt.
You know, Fred, and let me pick it up from my senior brother, Pogish, what he's just been articulating. There's something called living within means. We all do budgeting, all of us. And when your inflows are affected for whatever reason, you sit down as a family and prioritize. Say, this one we can afford to hold, this one we can afford to cut by half, and this one until we get through this turbulence moment. When His Excellency talks about borrowing money, we then get extremely worried. Because when he was campaigning, he told us very clearly that borrowing will be something of the past. But in less than 2 years in office, he has borrowed billions of shillings. He has borrowed more than any other president has borrowed within a span of 2 years. So how can we even believe that the statements he makes, particularly when it comes to public resources, and can he even justify why we need to borrow money? We have said here so many times, and my brother Pogio said it here, that just deal with corruption. Then come to every expenditure line and ask yourself tough questions. Do we need to renovate the deputy president's residence, official residence? This year. Can it hold? Must we, even if we must renovate, should it cost us 700 million Kenya shillings? Must we spend another billion shillings making him comfortable State House, renovating State House? This State House has been there before even he was born. We have had 4 other presidents who have worked from there, who have lived there. What makes him so special that he wants to spend public funds as if, you know, he's spending it as, I don't know how to define it, as if it's a loose change. These are public resources. These are not your personal resources. So why can't we deal with issues that are priority and look at what we have? And he keeps on saying that we need to live within our means. We can afford to work even with a budget of 3.5 or even 3 trillion shillings. It's a matter of deciding what can we do now, what can we postpone, what is really necessary. For example, does it make logic to spend 5 million Kenya shillings, not Uganda shillings, 5 million Kenya shillings, Fred, on tea and mandazi? Even President Uhuru Kenyatta was even better. And we know we were consuming other things in State House. These guys are only consuming mandazi and tea, and they are costing us 5 million bob every day. Fred, this is madness.
All right.
Surely, Mr. President, what are you doing to this country?
As we come to the end of the conversation, the Gen Zs have said and have given indication that the protests will continue this week. Given the kind of actions the president has taken so far, how else can you advise him on the way forward? He has called for a conversation with the younger generation. Do you think it will work?
Well, my advice to him is that he should reduce trips abroad as a way of saving a lot of resources, because presidential visit or trip is almost 10 times a visit by a minister, or even if not more. So he should reduce to a minimum the trips abroad. Number 2, he must show by deed what I said at the beginning: either dissolve his cabinet, and after dissolution of the cabinet, take time to reflect on the promises he made, the manifesto he gave us, and some of the statements he has made in the recent past, and come out to Kenyans that, yes, I had promised a raft of things, but within the means that we have, and given the situation of our economy, we can only achieve 1, 2, 3. Kenyans are forgiving, and most important, we should not see any person being gunned down unless they show that they already have alternative weapons, because that is the role of the state, to protect each person and property. More each person to begin with. Property can be replaced, but lives cannot be replaced.
Okay. Thank you. Bwana Pogisio, final words.
Well, I think this is time for the president to retreat to a place where he can reflect, not with the usual hang-ons, but with people who can tell him things as they are, who can actually tell him the situation as it is, and how probably he can get out of the situation. Otherwise, the more the president addresses the nation, the more he infuriates the people, and the more he raises issues. I don't even know where it came from that he would say that those MPs who voted yes are the heroes. Where did that statement come from? Who put that statement in his speech? We would like to make sure that, because that is going counter to the same people that you want actually to address the issues. So let him retreat, let him go and find out, let him find the people who can tell him the truth. Because the ones around him apparently are not helping at all. Or you see that he's not listening to them. But more importantly, as my brother Kirwa has said, don't shoot to kill. There are many ways of arresting. These kids don't resist arrest. They actually board the trucks themselves. They don't resist, so there'll be no way of even shooting them. What is it that they have put out? They brought something called the irreducible minimums. They printed that. Listen to them. Read those irreducible minimums and see what you can do. Forget completely on the issues of more borrowings in Kenya, live within your means. Let's live within our means. Kenyans are ready to live within their means. Why is it that the executive is not ready to live within their means? What is it in this finance bill that you are counting on that now you think we must borrow money for it? Whatever that was, it can wait one more year. Finance bill and budgets are done every year. Let's not push ourselves to the brink.
Okay. Finally, Bwana Kisia.
Let me say this in closing. My brother Kirwa is talking about, sending the cabinet home. We are past that. We already passed that one. He had an opportunity to reorganize his government. The only language people will hear right now is for him to hand in his resignation letter. That's an irreducible minimum. That's what people are saying. So any other thing you're saying, sack these people, that will not calm people down. We are past that one. The elephant is in the room. You can't hold the tail, it will not help you. These children, our children, and he kept on talking about children, his children, sons and daughters. How would you feel, Mr. President? How would you feel, Mr. President, if one of your children died in the manner that the 24 young children have died, the youngest being 12? How would you feel, Mr. President? How would you feel if that was your child? Let me say this. These children came with posters demonstrating peacefully. They were met with bullets. These children came with bottles of water and maybe a mask to cover themselves from your tear gas. You don't only tear gas the children, but you actually killed your government, your administration, your security agencies actually killed our children. That is what we can remember. And when you say, Mr. President, that you do not have blood on your hands are bloody bad. They are bloody bad. They are full of blood. We need to clean this. Not only you, not only Parliament, we need to do something about this country. Okay. Otherwise, we are headed to the dogs. We cannot talk about a revolution is coming. It is already here with us.
Okay. Indeed, it is going to be the biggest conversation going forward. It's the only conversation we've dealt on this entire show today, coming from the interview the president gave in that round table with senior editors yesterday, and it will definitely continue being discussed by Kenyans. Thank you so much, Philip Kisia, former town clerk Nairobi, Samuel Pogisio, former Minister for ICT, and Ruto Arap Kirwa, former Minister for Agriculture. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time at TV4.